Hello, sir. Do you have the French papers?
Yes.
And do you feel French?
No.
There you go. Thank you. I suggest we make this maté together. Come with me. We're in my kitchen and I'll quickly explain how I make my maté. It's simple, like making tea. You heat water, and while it heats, I'll explain why maté is great. Maté boosts energy like coffee. Energy will be better distributed, lasting all day. Your concentration and energy will remain stable. So if you need energy for a whole day, maté is better than coffee. It's that simple. The water is nearly hot. Next, I open the maté package. So here I take a tablespoon of yerba, pour it into the infuser, and now I pour the hot water into the thermos. Put in the infuser and close it. There you go. In 2 minutes, I'll remove the infuser and have mate for energy all day. Let's remove the infuser and you get a good and delicious mate.
Hot.
Jean-Eudes, hello. Hello, Vincent. How are you? Very well, and you?
Well, listen, I'm fine. It's nice to see you.
Well, likewise, thank you for having me, if I may say so.
So we're in Paris?
Yes, absolutely.
Near Pigalle, between Pigalle and Barbès?
Exactly. We didn't go to see the girls. I'm telling everyone before there are any bad jokes.
Exactly.
However, we're going to head towards Barbès, and we'll get to Barbès in 5 minutes, so we'll see a bit. What's happening there? Yeah. Knowing that you, for having described reality... Absolutely.
Not long ago, you were taken into police custody.
Yes. Yeah. 48 hours in police custody for showing what everyone knows and expressing what many people feel. And I spent 48 hours in police custody during a media frenzy. Absurd. But there you go. And as a result, I'm banned from Twitter for a month and from TikTok too. And above all, I'm forbidden from going to the Leclerc where the famous video took place. Hi everyone, I'm back in my hometown, which has about 10,000 people. And for a few years now, every night, it's like this. There you go, matching. We're wondering what's happening. Basically, Afghan refugees are lingering. There you go. Still at Leclerc buying food? Don't care. Welcome to the French countryside. Can you give us the context? It was a Leclerc you went to as a kid. Right. I grew up in Segré, a town of about 10,000 people. It turns out that for the past 2 or 3 years, we've had more and more refugees who are housed in the old hospital, so it's quite symbolic. That is, the public hospital closed, and there's an association that receives funding, which takes in refugees. The growing presence of these refugees is increasingly irritating the population, as everyone is starting to wonder. People here are usually welcoming, so we accept refugees, but after some time we start wondering when they'll leave. And the fact is that they aren't leaving. And so, as usual, I was going shopping at that Leclerc, and once again they were there sitting in their traditional clothing. That's it. I made a short video where they appear briefly. You'll see it on the screen. I say, welcome to the French countryside. Some guys still do nothing. And the slightly provocative banner said, tired of living with the cousins of the Taliban all the way out in the depths of the French countryside. So the guys filed a complaint.
But really, was it them or were they helped by an association?
Oh no, of course they were helped by an association, that's for sure. Since, according to a journalist who has met them since then, there's only one who actually speaks French a little better than the others. And actually, it was an association that encouraged them to file a complaint, a local organization that helps migrants. They filed a complaint. 4 of the 5 did so for incitement to racial hatred.
So actually, it was leftists who saw your video. Because at first, initially, it didn't go viral. It only went viral once people found out you were in police custody.
Well, I know that evening it was already circulating quite a bit. When I went into police custody, at the moment I entered police custody. It already had 200,000 views on TikTok, which is pretty good.
Okay, yes, exactly.
Actually, apparently because he has some of those people, those Afghans who work. The local press really pointed it out to show how much of a jerk I was because they were perfect immigrants.
So they don't burn anything?
See, they don't burn anything, but that's it. Some of them actually work at night.
At the factory?
That's right, exactly. That's not exceptional in context. If you've been here since 2019 or 2020, working isn't really an achievement. And by the way, if the local press emphasizes so much that some of them are working, it really shows how, on the contrary, a lot of them aren't working, you know? You can work in a country where you're welcomed without needing to wear traditional clothes or sit on the floor. Ultimately, it doesn't change the truth of what I'm saying. We're fed up in our small towns. of seeing behaviors that have nothing to do with what we've always known from people who have nothing to do with those we're used to seeing, you know.
What actually happens if you learn in the evening that you'll be taken into custody?
No, basically I make my video, well, just as an anecdote, in the evening, I tell my wife I'm not really a TikToker. I tell my wife I made a video on TikTok that's not really like me. If my friends see it, they'll tease me for acting like a TikToker. The video actually goes viral. And the next day at noon, I was working, I'm a caterer, I was working in my lab. I get a call from the police saying I must come in immediately at the prosecutor's request to be taken into custody. I ask why. He tells me I'm being taken into custody over a video from yesterday at the Leclerc in Ségres. So I go, I'm taken into custody and soon realize I'll spend the night there. The next day I quickly see I'll be staying a second night too. To go to immediate trial actually. And what's crazy is that it's actually what's called a press offense. And there were a few questions about my video, the content of the video, the context, which is normal in that situation. But I got a lot of questions about my family, my relationship with my parents, my children, where my children go to school, their school, my workplace, how long ago I started my company, and so on and so forth. All these questions, in my opinion, are mainly there to put pressure on me. And even my wife was questioned, that's all.
That's impressive.
Yeah, and it was almost all personal questions, pretty much.
So what was the point? Was it to scare you?
I think so, yeah, I think so. Well, the expected effect didn't really happen, huh? Because Prosecutor Bouillard in Anger, he's someone who's pretty abrupt in the way he does things, let's say. And he's been pursuing me with his affection for a few years now. But actually, this time, it was so absurd that it created a terrible backlash for him. And to such an extent that 1 or 2 hours before the immediate hearing I was supposed to have, the deputy prosecutor informed us there wouldn't be an immediate hearing, and that I was going to be placed under judicial supervision, but that I could leave free, you know?
Wow. Why is this prosecutor targeting you?
I don't know. I think he's a guy who, regardless of his political views, he seems to me to be quite left-wing. But he's a guy who, in my opinion, is pretty hot-headed. Anyway, I don't want to insult any judges. But he feels compelled to act violently, even though it was absurd to do so for a press offense.
But Jean-Eudes, the prosecutor, he probably thinks that you're someone from the far right, that you're a big fascist, a bad guy, etc. Maybe even a neo-Nazi. Maybe he thinks that.
Maybe I even deserve that title. How do you define yourself? Listen, you know, ideological labels change over time, etc., and I often find them limiting. But, well, I'm not going to dodge the question. But, basically, above all, I think I'm a French patriot, a deeply rooted Catholic with an identity-focused and nationalist outlook. Well, both. And that's it. And above all, I'm a father. Of course, I obviously have a certain ideological radicalism or ideological markers, but at the same time, I live the life that many people do. I support my family and am renovating a country house with my wife. That's it. That's who I am.
In your life, what are you? You're a caterer? Is that how you make your living?
I'm a caterer. We make Anjou specialties like fouets and froisses, each with specific names. They're little breads that you can toast that you bake in the oven and then fill afterwards. I also handle a lot of rotisserie, weddings, events, and similar things. That's my job.
When you say identitarian, what does that mean, identitarian?
That means I'm for the defense of our identity. First of all, our local identities, then French and European. And it's quite important to define that. That means I want us to continue to exist in our deepest being in who we are. As Europeans, as white people, let's not be afraid of words. And as Christians too. Which doesn't mean, by the way, that I despise or hate all other civilizations. I believe we have the right to exist as we are for hundreds of years, even thousands of years, and that we are the only ones. I wrote a book about this, but we're the only ones denied this right. Whenever we mention whites or Europeans, it's to make them feel guilty.
We're the villains of history, basically.
There you go. We're kind of the villains of history, which is crazy because when it comes to the good things that humanity can enjoy, we're still very often at the origin of those, at least when it comes to medicine, science, and so on. And so it's quite unfair.
So how do you see France?
In what state do you perceive it?
Well, if you look around us, it's... So actually, the first observation we wanted to show with the hashtag Show the Reality. After I was released from police custody, we wanted to show people, especially those in the countryside, what it was really like. The first observation in France is that France is a country that's been invaded, literally. It's on the verge of a civilizational shift.
Invaded? You're using the word invasion?
Well, when you look around us, obviously, it's not an invasion with weapons, with an army, with uniforms, but you have a population replacement and ongoing ethnic and cultural conflicts. Yes, it's very clear, but we have to go back to the origins of how we got here. And France is also a country that, before being forcibly made multicultural, was a country that was acculturated, which was emptied of its substance by an obese, centralizing state, very hostile to what made up our deep identity, that is, regional culture and Catholicism. And basically, we can't explain this rise in immigration and this shift in population and culture without revisiting the roots of the nihilism that enabled this, you see? So that's how I see France right now. And the future then, the future is rather bleak. First, the economic crisis and so on that we see, and then the difficulty in finding solutions in such a situation. That is to say, Malikum salam. So here it is. We either adapt or do reverse assimilation like we are now. Or we consider dividing the territory, which is already happening. Also, there are very few French people here. So we either accept it or consider reversing migration flows. I'm not sure.
So Jean-Eudes, I'm asking you a question, because the left, the public prosecutor who's harassing you and so on,
They call you hateful, claiming it's racial incitement.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
do you hate the people around us here? Do you hate them?
No, not at all. Frankly, I don't like all of them, since we're being harassed right now. I don't feel deep hatred. I'm mainly upset with those who brought them here and made them think they could be French like us. Those who lied, especially to the French, made them feel guilty by imposing many moral demands to make them accept the situation. That's who I'm really upset with. I don't feel hateful. I'm actually someone who's I think I'm quite cheerful in life, actually. And I can get angry, but Morris wrote this poem, Lord, my heart has never known hatred. I really relate to it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Honestly, it's pretty rare for me to even hate someone. Even in daily life, you know. That doesn't make me a saint or always charitable, but I don't hate anyone. Not really.
All right. And regarding the future of France, what solution would you see?
What solution? I want us to find a solution from above, basically to prevent a civil war. That is starting to show, or community or ethnic tensions in short, and that we managed to reverse the migration flows. First of all, that is by stopping a certain number of social benefits, because actually that's what acts as a magnet.
But here the left-wing French would tell you, no, that's precisely what France is. France stands for helping neighbors, fraternity, liberty, and equality.
They define France by abstract values no one relates to. That is, when a tourist comes to visit France, they don't give a damn about liberty, equality, and fraternity. They're not here for liberty, equality, or fraternity, you know? They want to experience the culture, see monuments, try the cuisine, and spot a Frenchman wearing a beret with a baguette, which, by the way, barely exists now.
Being French is also a way of thinking.
Yes, but a way of thinking it's not about abstract values. I mean, what people like, I think, in France too, is it's part of our history. Freedom of expression, satire. They like the irreverent side of the French. Yes, of course, people like that. But if you want, when you imagine France, when you imagine a country where, when the Poilists went to die in 1914-1918, they didn't go to the front to defend the Charlie spirit, you know. See? I think they wanted to defend their church towers and families, because that's what a nation is, above all. It's a big family of families. It's a group of people. The national community is made up of communities connected by family and cousin relationships. And
You see, the gentleman likes my videos.
Shows that you're really well integrated in Barbès, huh?
Absolutely. Some people became famous here because of me, but now the Republican promise is to say that.
But I don't want to be filmed, guys.
No problem, sir. We won't. You're not in the frame. We'll even move away a bit. The Republican promise is to say that all these people, will become French. Maybe they're even already French because they have French papers. Yeah, but that's the real tragedy. It's the awful lie we've told the French and those people that they never really become French. By the way, there are many who know it deep down, or even not just deep down, you know. There are a lot of people here, they have French papers. I had friends in Morocco who obtained French citizenship. It was for administrative convenience. They didn't feel French at all. For them to truly become French, it must be possible, but with so many people, it's impossible. They would also need something to adapt to. Constant guilt tripping and loss of French culture and identity don't help assimilation, even if they wanted to. No, I think that's a big lie. And if we want to solve the problem, we're going to have to think about reversing the migration flows. We're going to have to accept...
Come, let's talk. Come on, guys.
I don't want to talk, sir.
Well, why not?
Well, come on.
Good luck.
Good luck.
Well, they're here, anyway.
And to reverse the migration flows, I think we need to tackle the problem head on, which basically means we need to re-examine a certain number of granted nationalities. That doesn't mean we have to send everyone back to their home country. That doesn't mean we don't need workers in the economy. We must be realistic. But you can't tell people who are French, like my children, or those whose families have been French for centuries, or even 1,000 years. Someone will need to tackle the problem directly.
Here, we're at the heart of the matter.
Here, we're exactly on the dividing line between someone who would call themselves left-wing and someone who would be defined as right-wing.
That's the question. Does having a French identification card make you French?
No, clearly not. And it's even a dividing line within the right. You have an assimilationist right that is sincerely convinced. Essentially, the values of the Republic or France's eternal values alone can make people truly French on a large scale, as long as there is political will. And I can't remember who said it, but assimilationism is the right-wing word for living together and multiculturalism, you see. As long as no one really takes the issue head on. Basically, there is no possible salvation or hope, or we'll need to reverse migration flows and return to a civic view of patriotism. Just having abstract values or papers doesn't suddenly make us French. That's not possible.
Jean-Eudes, can you agree that, in principle, the idea is beautiful, to say we have a nation, a family?
Yes, but communism is beautiful too, you see?
No, but I mean, the idea is that we have a big family and we're going to occasionally welcome people that we'll bring into our family.
And that's actually a very Christian idea at its core.
No, but okay, but here it's not occasional. Here it's systematic, mandatory, and everything. But now if...
At first, that's how it was.
In every country in the world, you have people who arrive and who integrate and who end up putting down roots. That's always existed. That can continue on the margins, but for that to happen, the family still needs to know exactly who they are. That is to say, to be adopted into a family, people have to recognize the authority of the father and the mother. People need to know their grandparents. There needs to be a limit. That's it. There needs to be a limit, of course. There must be boundaries, you see. Inclusion requires some exclusivity. It's impossible otherwise. That's the big lie of recent years, and we're living it now. Honestly, we should ask the people around us if they feel French.
Sir.
Hello, sir.
Come, no problem. Sir, come. Hello, sir.
Can we ask you a question? Hello, sir. Just one question. Do you have French papers?
Yes.
And do you feel French?
No.
There you go. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I invite viewers to try it themselves.
Hello, ma'am. Quick question. Do you feel French?
A little.
A little?
All right, thank you, ma'am.
It's not really passionately or madly. We're on the first pedal. A little.
No, but it's true. No, but there's some hypocrisy about that.
There's a huge hypocrisy. I have quite a bit.
It's not a big deal. Besides, the worst part is, it's not a big deal if they don't feel French, you see. What's serious is that the system makes us believe,
Of course.
that they're going to feel French after a while.
And what's serious is that as a result, since they know very well how we operate, if there's a conflict or a problem, that's when they know how to tell you, I'm just as French as you, I have the papers, I work, that's what...
They play their card.
Of course, but I don't blame them.
You see, there's a gap, and they rush into the gap, but the thing is, in case of armed conflict, for example, there wouldn't be any French people there anymore.
Of course, obviously there wouldn't be any. I saw footage of people being asked if they'd fight for France in a conflict with Russia. Obviously not. First of all, there are plenty of French people who don't want to go fight against Russia. I can totally imagine that when you're there and you have the chance to go back to your home country to live a better life in case of conflict, everyone leaves. I mean, that's normal. That's the big hypocrisy. I've done a lot of temp and factory work. And everyone had their papers, but everyone talked to you about their country of origin, of course.
And by the way, there's also a strong marker. Where do you get buried when you die?
Yes, of course.
Many North Africans are buried back home in the bled.
That's proof. That's really proof. It's tangible proof that the guy, his land, isn't France.
These guys are even more Barbèsian than us. Barbès said, the land and the dead, they know that well. of course, and they're right. So the main issue, returning to the start of our conversation, is immigration. This happened on such a massive scale because there was a void in our country. A demographic void, of course, but also a cultural void, you know. What allows the rapid rise of Islam is obviously the fact that people have become de-Christianized. They have stronger social ties among themselves, even in the countryside, which we shouldn't idealize. Old people are very easily left in solitude. The sense of family is completely absent. By the way, historically, things have gone in that direction, actually. So, first, there were anti-Christian laws and the introduction of divorce. Now, I'm not against divorce, but that's how it happened historically. Modification of the divorce law, then anti-Christian law. After that, we get to May 68, the family breaks apart, and then immediately after come abortion, family reunification, mass immigration, and so on. And I think that to solve this issue, to allow the French to become French again and to be a bit freer in their own country, and especially to feel more at home in their own country, they still need to go back to traditional values, that's clear.
So for you, France is not just an idea?
No, France is not just an idea.
It's physical. It's something.
It's physical. That's where I'm really not very Republican in feeling or affection. You already have Charrette's beautiful speech where he asks about his opponents. What is it that... So Charette, who is the supreme commander of the Vendée army, of the Catholic and Royal Army during the Revolution, peasants who decide to resist the armies of the Republic. And he says, what is it? What is their world? It's just an idea. For us, homeland is under our feet, our homes, our graves, that's all. I believe the dilemma hasn't changed for over 200 years.
Yes.
It's patriotism embodied, lived.
Well, come on. You can join in if you want, dear sir.
No, it's fine. We're in a rush.
Okay, yeah, you see, there is... You still have some support.
Maybe it's because in truth?
There comes a time when some of them actually agree with us, in truth.
Yes, but I believe many people like me came to France to escape things in their own country. They have no intention of changing as individuals, feeling Moroccan, Algerian, or whatever, but they would prefer France itself not to change much. Because otherwise, they'll end up facing the same problems here that they fled from back home. And that's certain, that's obvious. Does that mean we must welcome everyone just because they're nice, hardworking, or like France? No, that's a separate issue. I lived in Morocco, I really like Morocco, but that doesn't make me Moroccan, and Morocco isn't obligated to welcome me because of that. If there are issues with the French in Morocco tomorrow, Morocco will close its borders to them.
You wouldn't want Morocco to lose its culture for yours, would you?
No, of course not, but
I wouldn't like that.
even when...
I would think it would be a waste.
It would be a waste. Even when we colonized Morocco, we remained respectful of the culture. I'm not claiming we were always respectful during the Rif Wars or anything, but I mean, France didn't really make Morocco that French, and even the laws in Morocco. For your information, the laws that forbid Westerners from entering mosques are laws dictated by the IOT.
Oh, really?
Correct. He said you must respect the local culture. If Westerners enter mosques without respecting local customs and traditions, etc., we can't get the Moroccan support.
Ah, yes, okay. I didn't know that. Okay.
Proof that colonization hasn't always been shameful or disrespectful.
So, there's another point that we still need to address, because it's a huge argument from the left. They say we're exaggerating. When there's no great replacement, some on the left, like Mélenchon, admit it.
Yes, creolized France.
Creolized New France, etc. He admitted the concept of the great replacement.
Yes, Mr. Zemmour, there is a great replacement. Yes, Mr. Bayrou, there is a great replacement. What is this replacement? This replacement is that of one generation coming after another, and it will never look like the previous one. Creolization is something that represents the future of humanity. Whoever we are, whatever our gender, whatever our color, whatever our religion.
On the other hand, you have a part of the left that says, no, you're exaggerating. There's not that much violence, there's not that much delinquency, and there's not that much immigration. That's not true. There's no great replacement.
Yeah, but at some point, reality sets in. I think people looking around now realize that. And I think even Mélenchon, when he talks about creolization, he's actually lying. He knows it. He doesn't want to admit the great replacement. But since he has political sense, he can clearly see that people notice there's a change in the population around them. He mentions creolization, but that's not its meaning. Creolization means a mix. He says there's creolization, but also claims there's a great replacement and hopes for creolization. He wants us to blend together completely to create something new, you see? There's no creolization or mixing, just a great replacement, and mixing remains rare.
So it's just a piling up, right?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah, there's a piling up, yeah. And then there are people who are fleeing, especially in the west of France. I'm not exaggerating. I meet families every month who have fled the Paris region. I just had dinner recently, so if they see the video, no hard feelings. With very nice Catholic people, it was a countryside dinner. Someone says the neighboring village is seeing more immigrants. And then the people who were with us, who come from the Paris region, tell us, yeah, you're exaggerating. And then immigration, it's not so bad, and as Catholics, we have to be welcoming, etc., etc. After half an hour, they admit they left Montreuil due to too much immigration. There you go. An undeniable internal migration has been occurring for about 10 years, in my opinion. And now, it's really starting to snowball. People are moving to provinces less affected by replacement. And even there, for example, many people came to Angers about 10 years ago to escape immigration. People are leaving Angers for the countryside to escape immigration again.
Let's go over there. There's the market, I see. Let's go to the market. It's interesting. So you think everyone knows?
I think everyone knows. Yeah, I think everyone knows. And now there are those who have so much nihilism in them, so much self-hatred and hatred of our culture. They say it's fine, we're just going to disappear.
Even better.
There you go, yeah, or even better. There are others who, especially among the elderly, and that's where the usefulness of these reports comes in, because for a long time I thought F. de Souche was no longer useful, for example.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was thinking basically, okay, what's the point of always talking about news stories and all that? We all know there are news stories. But actually, especially among older people, there's a big lack of understanding about what's going on. They either don't see or choose not to, living in their own bubble, whether in the countryside or a protected neighborhood. So no, we have to show the reality, because there are still people who don't know, or there are people who know but who turn a blind eye. Actually, they think it won't happen to them. That is to say, actually, you have people who say to themselves, well, oh, what's going on? Oh, wow, they're running. It's chaos. What's going on, ma'am? What's happening?
Okay, they're all gone now.
Because actually, oh yeah, right, it's an illegal market, obviously. Okay, they leave the boxes on the ground. Well, okay, there you go.
Taking back a city isn't that complicated. I'm going to make you enforce the law. There are a lot of people leaving.
No, but they'll return in 5 minutes.
No, and then there are all those who think it won't happen to them. They'll say, okay, there is a lot of immigration in Barbès, but Barbès has always been like that, when in fact that's not true. Barbès wasn't like this 50 years ago. If we don't act, all of Paris could end up like Barbès. But there are a lot of people who think that's impossible. I often meet people who, either due to their purchasing power and current protection, or because they're naive and live in the countryside or elsewhere, who say to themselves, no, but at our place, that's impossible. But I was born in Roubaix. At the time, my father was a city councillor in Roubaix.
FN, I have to say.
FN, of course, I have to say it, but I'm not ashamed of it at all. In Roubaix, at that time, the FN was getting about 18% and later rose to 20%. After the Great Replacement, there were no more native French people, so it declined. It's at ridiculous numbers now. And I think that among those ridiculous numbers, there are even immigrants who vote for the FN, well, Rassemblement National now. Well, because precisely the situation as it is doesn't suit them, you know? They immigrated to France and now they find themselves in Bamako, you know?
In their country of origin.
Exactly. And what we need to say to people, especially our opponents who think we're a big threat to democracy, etc., it's that actually for there to be democracy. As for me, I'm not a convinced Republican. I don't think democracy is an absolute... Anyway, that's it. But for there to be democracy, there has to be a shared awareness of belonging together. And not just about values. Also and above all, well, a sense of shared belonging to a people. And right now, the way things are going, well, we're moving toward community-based logic, where majorities crush minorities. Anyone who knows the Arab world or certain multicultural countries can see that, in fact, democracy, it's only possible with ethnic, cultural, or religious homogeneity. Otherwise, the majority oppresses the minority. And now it's happening in an increasingly obvious way. Now, in France, where you have community-based voting that's getting more intense, where on one side you have people who don't want immigration and who, no matter what the National Rally's program is in terms of the economy or anything else, they will vote for the National Rally because they want to preserve their identity. And in other neighborhoods, people will vote for France Insoumise. No matter what France Insoumise's program is on transsexuality or lesbian, gay, bisexual and transgender issues, you see.
Because they want to preserve their identity.
Exactly, because they want to keep living together, like back in the bled.
And to be who they are.
and to be who they are exactly.
Yes, the vote for La France Insoumise is community-based.
Oh, well, for the most part. In the suburbs, yeah, it's obvious. And then anyone who has participated in a municipal election knows very well how things go in the neighborhoods that have been greatly replaced. You have clientelism happening openly. You go and court the local imam, so he'll call on people to vote for you. You take part in Ramadan iftar dinners and so on and so forth.
Sometimes we see images of that.
Yeah, just to get the community vote. And then, well, it's like, you know, I think the first people killed in the Algerian war, just before the bloody All Saints' Day, were a couple of communist teachers. So it was done by guys from the National Liberation Front, and I think it kind of foreshadows what could be waiting for us in France, which, by the way, has already happened a bit with Charlie Hebdo. That is to say, actually, you have a lot of people on the left who imagine that they can be pro-immigration or even ride the migration phenomenon electorally. They don't realize they'll also be replaced one day. Mélenchon is still an old white man, over 60.
Of course.
In the coming world, especially on the left, that's also true for revolutionaries. We've seen it in the French and Russian revolutions, among others. In the world that's coming, today's revolutionaries are tomorrow's reactionaries, you see. And it's obvious that Mélenchon at some point will act as a reactionary for those people, and politically they'll get rid of him.
That actually happened to a deputy from La France Insoumise, the young one, who wanted to run in the north of Paris.
Boyard, yeah. He got kicked off the list because in the end, he didn't meet the standards. Yeah, well, yeah, no, but it's obvious. But anyway, what do you even want to go talk about? And on that, the immigrants are right. Why would you want to talk to them about gender theories, transsexuality, oppression? I mean, there's nothing more. There's nothing more capitalist, nothing more oppressive than a suburban neighborhood. Actually, for these guys, their standard is already rap music. So you see, it's not really anti-capitalist. Their model is extremely patriarchal, and their methods aren't very inclusive or peaceful. So here, there's really a kind of schizophrenia on the left. Who's gonna beat them up? When it backfires, many will get what they deserve. I don't wish harm on anyone, especially the voters, but this will likely backfire on us too.
Yeah. How do you view France's future?
What possible solution do you see?
Listen, first of all, the impression I have about the current historical moment you see is that the future is very uncertain. That there is a general decline in intelligence quotient, which is partly related to immigration, but also related to screens. To the fact that there is a break in transmission, that the school is no longer doing its job, and so on. So the future is quite bleak. People are very dependent on the state. People have actually gotten used to being protected by the state, to being helped by the state when they have problems and so on. But all of this will come to an end. I mean, a state that is declining so much and has so many problems with debt and structural functioning won't be able to help people all the time. A major social crisis is clearly coming.
That's already the case, by the way.
Yeah. But it's going to get worse. It's going to add to the economic crisis, which, anyway, we're right in the middle of. Now, there's a bit of awareness, maybe among the French, about migration issues. I feel like basically the system is holding on by force by being very aggressive. We saw this during Mayan, the Natif's recent police custody. We see this with all issues of freedom of expression, not just those affecting identitarian activists in recent years. And whether you're a comedian or politician, it ends with police custody or embarrassing trials. And why does the system hit so hard, in my opinion? It's because we've experienced, you see, a kind of freedom. I often compare this to the de-Stalinization policy after Stalin died. And for 4 or 5 years in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, people could question the nomenclatura, the system, a bit more. So freedom of the press was a little greater than under Stalin. And then, all of a sudden, the system tightens up, becomes harsher, right up until the fall of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And I think that basically we experienced the rise of the internet, of freedom of speech. 10 years ago, the 2 most visited political sites I don't know about today. They were 2 far-right sites, F2 Souche and Égalité et Réconciliation. And so a lot of people felt like that's it, a breath of fresh air and everything. And then actually the internet is now locked down. There are Avia laws, and a TikTok video can get you 48 hours in police custody, even if you said nothing unusual.
Which is still pretty rare.
Yeah, it's rare now, but it'll happen more often. When you see what happened to the native activists last week, the guys took a photo with a banner reading, 10 years later, the enemy is still here. They were detained and are under judicial supervision. even though they made a banner after the death of 139 of our fellow citizens by Islamists, some of whom even pretended to be refugees. I mean, in a normal world, those responsible for this deadly policy, they beat their breast in guilt.
In fact, they are even judged themselves.
They are judged themselves, yeah. We don't arrest or incriminate those speaking out about issues we already raised before the attacks, because the reality is, if we had listened to him, there wouldn't have been attacks. We need to remind our friends, grandparents, and everyone of this. If they had listened to us, if they had listened to Jean-Marie Le Pen, there wouldn't have been the Bataclan. That's it. Well, now the system is getting a bit tougher, but nobody believes in it anymore. I mean, you see Gérard Collomb, who says, the former minister of the Interior who died, who was the mayor of Lyon, who said, today we look at each other, we live side by side, soon we'll be living face to face. We all know that Macron said that at the Caisse d'Allocation Familiales, there were only Mamadous. I don't know, a sentence like that.
At the hospital, in the emergency room, yeah.
In the emergency room, sorry, yeah. Anyway, even the elite don't believe in it anymore. So they hold on to their power because they want to keep their perks, because they don't want to make brave decisions, because they're afraid things might blow up. I don't know. But nobody believes in it anymore. Actually, living together, the myth of living together, if I can put it that way, it's dead now. It's broken down. Just like the communist myth was broken down at the end of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And so I think that this could be a sign of pretty good things to come.
You mean that actually, even before the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics collapsed, people already knew that communism was dead?
Yes, absolutely.
They stayed silent, fearing repression.
Exactly.
And that's kind of the case in France now.
That's exactly how I feel. In fact, in regimes based on philosophical abstractions, there comes a time when no one believes in the philosophical abstraction anymore, and reality starts to show itself. Well, it's bound to collapse. Now, I don't know how long it will take, and I don't know if it will happen soon enough for us to imagine reversing some of the migratory flows, going back on the policy of granting nationalities, etc., without it becoming an ethnic war. That's really my concern, of course. But who will have the courage to do that now? Who will have the courage to enforce the necessary policy to regain? The happiness of the French people is what matters.
Yes, of course, it's happiness.
So then happiness is not of this world. Happiness with a capital H, but at least the joy of living and
the sweetness of life.
That's it, and some exciting prospects. And then actually peace, tranquility. Who will have the courage to implement all the necessary measures in terms of remigration, of cleaning up public finances,
of public order as well?
It's about public order. Who will have the courage to challenge supranational bodies, since that's still a problem? Who will have the courage? I don't know. I haven't spent much time with Jean-Marie Le Pen, but I last saw him in 2022. We spent the afternoon together, and the afternoon didn't end on that note, but almost. And it's really, there you go. And he seemed to, then after that, he said something very interesting to me. If it can restore hope to our viewers. He told me, after all, it's historical disasters that make great men. We shouldn't lose hope that someone will emerge, even if there are many problems. It also helps inspire vocations for courage and...
Yeah, but it also means we're living through a disaster.
We're living through a disaster. Anyway, it's the end of the Roman Empire, or something like that, something close to it. But that being said, you see, I don't know if we'll get France back I even doubt it, as a nation state, the way we knew it, or the way our parents knew it.
Gaullist France?
Yeah, Gaullist France, which, by the way, is the one that gave birth to ours, actually. That's why we shouldn't idealize all that too much.
No, the worm was already in the fruit.
Of course. But we still have to realize that basically our grandparents or great-grandparents used to learn Latin translations, did dictations in Latin, had a solid understanding, and even spoke ancient Greek and all that. Even though the Roman Empire had collapsed and ancient Greece had already given way to the Roman Empire. And what I mean by that is that civilization can endure if our traditional frameworks like the nation disappear, even if they seem natural to us. That's it. Even if we are experiencing a shift, even if we risk facing ethnic and cultural conflicts.
And religious ones.
And religious ones too. I find it hard to separate from cultural. Maybe all this will last in some way. Maybe...
No, maybe also that everything will disappear.
I'd like to give people hope again. Not just like that. It's not some incantation. I really mean it. But there are still millions of native French people. Not all the books have been burned. There are still guys in monasteries who speak Latin and ancient Greek fluently. There are still schools that pass things on. There are still popular traditions and so on. There are fewer there are a lot fewer than before, but there will be others that will be recreated, you see. And actually, as long as we keep the substance of who we are among several million people, and that there are communities that are being created or that endure, because not everything is, not everything has disappeared. I really think it's possible, honestly, that it won't disappear completely.
So France could survive even without the French state?
Well, basically, you see the fall of the Roman Empire. You have the Catholic Church and the Holy Roman Empire, which kind of fight over the succession of the Roman Empire. And actually, both of them at least carry on a whole part of that Greco-Latin culture and pass it down to us, you see. So here, yes, we're experiencing a very clear, very distinct break, but it could come back. And by the way, we shouldn't forget that before the Renaissance, there were centuries and centuries of copyist monks who preserved the existence of writings and an entire civilization, almost completely in secret. Well, I'm exaggerating, but with great discretion. While Europe was experiencing barbarian invasions, while there was the Black Plague, while there were so many things happening, it all led to the end of the Renaissance, you see? So we shouldn't lose hope. And, well, besides, incidentally, I believe in God. I encourage everyone watching to visit churches sometimes, since people often say civilization is doomed. We rarely go to the opera, don't read many books, or attend mass often, you see? And about that, I think there's something to be done too. That is, to save civilization, you have to really live it to the fullest. And go to the opera. Push yourself to read, spend less time online, build local connections, and prioritize real family life. A lot of things like that, it's already...
Have children.
Have children, of course. Lots of things like that. It's a very good way to save civilization, and to perpetuate it. If your life is just an Excel spreadsheet and Instagram Reels, yeah, it's unlikely we'll find a successor to Duguay Clin. But if you try to embody what you believe in and live it to the fullest, there's hope.
Thank you, Jean-Eudes.
With great pleasure. Thank you, Vincent.
It was a shared pleasure.
Well, that's good then. There you go. In this beautiful neighborhood of Barbès.
Well, yes, it went well in the end.
Of course, it'll be fine. Immigration is an opportunity. We were in a great, diverse neighborhood. No, it went well, but...
No, but that means that individuals themselves, and I really want to stress this because I have nothing against people individually.
That's the thing for me, you see.
No, but it went well because Eastern people are welcoming. They feel so comfortable there that if you want, they don't feel threatened. Well, if we were walking around in a police uniform there, maybe it wouldn't go so well, But just because the great replacement is happening peacefully doesn't mean it isn't real or tragic. Even if we don't blame individuals and all that, I agree. But once we've said that, we still need to address the problem in a rational and pragmatic way. And the great replacement, even if it's happening smoothly in some places, is still a tragedy that will probably need to be addressed in a somewhat radical way. And it's going to create major human tragedies for everyone. That's it. Alas. No, I'm more French than you. In my restaurant, I display both the French and Algerian flags. Well, no, yes, I'm sure. Show me on the app in the Caisse d'allocation familiale. But I don't have the Caisse d'allocations familiales app, friend. That means you must win the elections to return, but you can't win them anymore. Of course not, because there will be too many immigrants, so as a result, there's a great replacement. It's already happening. Immigrants are already here, not just coming. 3 teachers were picked up from their homes at 6 a.m., treated like criminals. If he really thinks it's cool, why doesn't he live in Barbès? I don't know where he lives, but I highly doubt he lives in Barbès. If he lives in Barbès, I'll walk around Barbès naked.